Okay. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the Town of Wolfeboro Planning Board meeting of July 5th, 2022. The first item on the agenda is for me to introduce the planning board members. My name is Kathy Barnard. I'm the chairman, and over at my left is Doug Breskin. And next to Doug is Peter Goodwin, Mike Hodder, who is the vice chairman, and then to my right, John Thurston, Brad Harriman, who is the representative from the Board of Selectmen, and Julie Jacobs, who is an alternate. Julie, would you be willing to sit for Vaughn since she has laryngitis?
Yes, I will.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, there are two public hearings tonight, and let me just quickly go over the format. First of all, I'll read the issue into the record, then the applicant will explain the project to us and the relevant information that we need to know. At that time, planning board members can ask questions. Also, when Jim finishes, if Tavis has anything that he wants to add, he can do that. And then we make a motion to, if the application is complete, which it seems to be, make a motion to accept the application as complete, and then I can open the public hearing if any member of the public wants to speak to the issue. At the end of that, and after all the questions have been answered, we will close the public hearing and deliberate on the issue. Okay, all right, the first item, Foley Family Revocable Trust 2013, 127 Forest Road, tax map 215-31, case 2022-06. This is a special use permit for a garage and a paved turnaround area on this property. First of all, let me just mention that I did take minutes of the site visit. We had a site visit at 6:30. Following members were present: Julie Jacobs, Doug Braskin, Peter Goodwin, John Thurston, Mike Hodder, Brad Harriman, and I was also there. We looked at the property and left at 6:40. So that's the minutes. Do you want me to type those up and give it to you, or can I give it to you in writing?
You just read it into the record, so it will be in the minutes.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Jim, you will just tell us who you are and explain what you're doing.
Certainly. Good evening. For the record, I'm Jim Rines from the White Mountain Survey and Engineering Division of Horizons Engineering, representing the Foley Family Revocable Trust 2013 in their request for a special use permit in accordance with Article 2, Section 175-10C2 for the construction of a 24 by 24 garage and a paved turnaround. The property is located at 127 Forest Road, tax map 215, lot 31. The lot has frontage on Forest Road and Partridge Drive. The wetland that is shown on this plan here is primarily a excavated wetland that was probably created when Cricket Hill was developed, and they used material borrowed out of there because it was outwash overlain on glacial till. That's why this septic system had a 6-foot seasonal high water table with the wetlands all surrounding it. As I said, the Foleys are seeking to construct a 24 by 24 garage with 1-foot overhangs, and in this location where the existing driveway now comes into that area. There's a walkway through it, and lawn goes all the way over to this area. The paved turnaround would be partially in an existing walkway and a lawn area there as well. With the exception of 50 square feet right in this corner, all of the proposed impacts are in areas that are currently have been impacted in the no-touch buffer and the structure setback. If this were to be approved, they would eliminate this shed here that's being used to house some lawn equipment and yard tools and things now. The project proposes 526 square feet in the 25-foot no-touch buffer and 594 square feet in the structure setbacks. And those can be seen, they ring around the development now. You can see them on your plan. The criteria that is required, well, before I get into that, that's an overview. Does anyone have any questions about what's being proposed before I start to go through the criteria?
Anyone? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Article 2, Section 175-10C2 requires that we demonstrate compliance with 175-10C1A through C and the findings listed in 175-5. So the measures that we have taken to minimize any potential impact to the wetlands include the installation of silt fencing and erosion silt socks for erosion control during the construction, and then planting of natural vegetation when the site is construction is complete and stabilization. The criteria in 175-10C1A requires a lack of alternatives, and there really is no reasonable alternative outside of the wetland buffer zone that has a less detrimental impact on the wetland. Due to the isolated location of this wetland, there is no reasonable alternative that would allow for the construction of a garage adjacent to the house that would have less of a negative impact. 175-10CB1B is essential need. Essentially, covered parking and storage is pretty much essential in residences in this climate. The property owners have attempted a number of winters without covered parking and permanent storage and have found it really an untenable situation, and so they're seeking to make changes that are more tolerable. 175-10C1C, impact minimization. The impact minimization that we have undertaken is that we are constructing all but 50 square feet in areas that have been previously disturbed with either lawn, driveways, or walkways. We are proposing an infiltration strip that would not only pick up runoff from the garage, but we also carried it all the way down to the light so it can pick up any runoff off of the driveway. Where that does not exist now, and that would be designed to accommodate the first flush of a storm. Section 175A through G has that we need to demonstrate that we prevent the destruction of or significant changes to wetlands, related water bodies, and adjoining land. And the proposed construction will occur outside of the wetland and will not affect the vegetation or wildlife within the wetland itself. 175B, protection of persons and property against hazards of flood inundation, ensuring the continuation of natural flow patterns. And the proposed improvements would have no negative impact to persons or property, nor will it alter the flow patterns of the wetlands or the water courses. 175C is to provide nutrient attenuation and augmentation during dry periods, and the proposed changes will have a neutral impact for nutrient attenuation and augmentation of stream flows during dry periods. The proposed drip edges will provide first flush level of treatment for stormwater events and will provide a level of stormwater infiltration on the site where none exists today. 175D, preserve and protect important wildlife habitat. There is no unique habitats that will be impacted by this proposal. Therefore, we believe it will have no negative impact to important wildlife habitat. And this proposal will continue to strike an ecological balance and preserve the surrounding habitat such as it is. 175E, to prevent the expenditure of municipal funds. This proposal makes absolutely no use or direct impact in or to wetlands, and for this reason, there should be no expenditure of municipal funds as a result of this proposal. 175F, protect the wetlands, watercourses, surface water, groundwater supplies, and water bodies by installing the drip edges along the garage and driveway access to the garage. Stormwater will be infiltrated into the ground, helping stormwater treatment and recharge to the groundwater. Additionally, surface water will continue to flow in the same direction as it does in the existing condition, which will maintain hydrology in the wetlands. And G, preserve and enhance those aesthetic values associated with the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District. By installing the drip edges, there will be a level of stormwater treatment that is not present in the existing condition. With the exception of 50 square feet, the construction will occur in previously disturbed areas and will not have a negative impact on the high ecological areas. And finally, the board, to grant a special use permit, must find that we comply with Article 2, Section 175, 10(1)B, which the first is that the proposed activity minimizes the degradation to or the loss of wetlands or wetlands buffers and compensates for the adverse impact to these functions. To do certain things, the first one is support fish and wildlife, and the proposed project will have no effect on fish and wildlife. The proposed work will occur primarily in previously disturbed areas and lawn and existing driveways, which provide none of the functions the buffer and setbacks are intended to provide. B, prevent flooding. The project will help prevent flooding through the installation of proposed drip edges, which will infiltrate stormwater from the garage and the access to the garage. C, supply and protect surface and groundwater. The proposed drip edge will help protect the groundwater by infiltrating the first flush of runoff from the proposed roof and driveway access through a layer of crushed stone. The proposed silt fence and silt sock will protect the wetlands from siltation during development and will remain in place until the site is stabilized with natural vegetation. D, control sediment. The silt sock and silt fence is proposed to be installed at the edge of the disturbance, will prevent sediment from going into the wetlands. E, control pollution. Pollution will be controlled throughout the development because the construction is typical residential construction and is not known to cause pollution, and will be no different when complete than compared with the present condition. F, supporting native vegetation. Native wetlands vegetation. There will be no change to the wetland vegetation. G is promote health and safety. The project will take place on private land and will not affect the public health and safety. And H, moderate fluctuations in surface water levels. The proposed drip edges will mitigate stormwater flow from the proposed garage and support fluctuation in the downstream surface waters. The second item is the proposed activity will have no negative impact, environmental impact to abutting or downstream property and or hydrologically connected water and or wetlands resources, including A, erosion. The site is relatively flat and will remain mostly undisturbed. Additionally, the drip edges will be installed along the proposed garage to capture and infiltrate runoff, and this will help prevent erosion. Siltation, the installation of silt fence and silt sock will be installed at the edges of the disturbance to prevent any silt from leaving the construction area. The silt fence and sock will be installed prior to earth disturbing activities and will remain in place until construction is complete and the site is stabilized with natural vegetation. C, turbidity. There will be no turbidity as part of this project. There will be no dewatering or sedimentation. D, the loss of fish and wildlife. The proposed development will not affect fish or wildlife. There will be no disturbance in the wetland or in high-value ecological areas. E, the loss of unique habitat having demonstrable natural and scientific or educational value. There will be no loss to unique habitat. The wetland is an isolated pocket surrounded by development. It is not connected to any other wetland complexes. F, loss and decrease of beneficial aquatic organisms and wetland plants. There is no construction in the wetlands, therefore no wetland plant or aquatic organisms will be removed. G, the dangers of flooding and pollution. There is no danger to flooding or pollution. The wetland is a low-value, isolated wetland pocket surrounded by development. The proposed garage and turnaround will not increase the flooding or pollution because of the proposed infiltration trench and erosion control measures. H, destruction of economic, aesthetic, recreational, or other public and private uses and values of the wetlands to the community. There will be no destruction of the economic, aesthetic, recreational, and other public and private uses and values of the wetlands to the community because the wetland is an isolated pocket with no great ecological value to the surrounding area. And number 3, the proposed activity or use cannot practicably be located otherwise on the site to eliminate or reduce the impact to the wetland buffer. The lot is an existing lot of record. The entire front portion of the lot is within the wetland buffer and setback. Therefore, there is no feasible location to put a garage that would be outside of the wetland setback. 4, the proposed activity utilizes the applicable best management practices. The proposed activity does use the best management practices because of infiltration trenches to be installed along the proposed garage. Additionally, silt fence and silt sock will be installed along the edge of the construction to contain sediment and protect the wetlands. Federal permits and relating to the Clean Water Act and the Wetlands Bureau rules, there are no state or federal permits required for this project. And where applicable, the proof of compliance with all state or other federal regulations has been received. And again, there are no other permits that would be required. And last but not...
Can you at some point in time comment on the Conservation Commission's?
I have not seen any comments. I've one, I'll just address the last thing, and then
okay.
if I could see the wetlands, the Conservation Commission's comments, I would address them.
The Conservation Commission, we didn't send this to the applicant?
I don't know that I saw it either.
Okay, so you
Let me just
haven't-
finish the last thing, Kathy,
okay,
and then
I'm
if I can look at that, I'll address it.
Okay.
And number 7 is when the special use permit application proposes work that requires a New Hampshire shoreland permit in accordance with RSA 483B, we would submit that, and because we're not in the protected shoreland, we did not file that. So if I could have
Okay, and we're required to send these special use permits to the Conservation Commission for their comments. And,
yes, and I even emailed the application package in its entirety to the chairman, but I got no comments back.
Okay, all right. Well, they did review it, and said the commission did not have strong objections to this proposal as proposed, or to this project as proposed, but feels that this construction should have been considered and accounted for during the initial site planning and home design phase, so the overall impacts to the property could have been reviewed more comprehensively. The commission also feels that the proposed garage could be built with smaller dimensions and still provide adequate vehicle storage and protection while minimizing the further encroachment into the wetland buffer. You want to just comment on
Sure.
that? Okay.
You know, I think when we came in for the initial thing, the intent was to minimize it, so we didn't propose a garage, and I think the Foleys thought that that would be a workable solution, but they haven't gotten any younger since this was built, and now they've lived without it, and they've recognized that perhaps that wasn't, you know, that they should have perhaps planned for that. And then as far as, you know, making a smaller one, this is just 24 by 24. It's not an oversized two-car garage. So we've tried to, we've tucked it up so that there's not a lot of space between the house and the garage. They're losing their walkway, so they're going to have to walk through the garage. There'll have to be a man door on each corner to get through there. So, you know, we've attempted to not ask for an oversized garage and keep it as far away from the wetlands as possible and in the areas that have already been impacted.
Okay, thank you. So you're finished with your...
I'm finished,
yeah, okay.
unless the board has questions.
Yeah. Okay, questions, folks?
I'm looking at the structure, and the 24 by 24 is a standard size garage. And, you know, you're looking to have cars there, but also there was some statement that you're looking for storage.
Correct.
And so therefore that, and I think that is okay, especially if you're removing the other storage building. And I'm just wondering whether you might be perhaps a little more creative in how you end up working with this, in that, you know, when a board ends up giving an exception, then other exceptions have to be given for perhaps similar reasons. And I'm just wondering if you could end up making a building which was not necessarily square, but have an extra area in the back for storage, and also rotate that building 15 or 20 degrees so that you were not going to impact that 25-foot setback. And I'm just wondering whether that works, or that's a possibility, or you'd contemplated it. In other words, you know, here is I'm looking at it and saying, this might work. I don't know whether it will, but it seems like you would be getting away from that 50-foot encroachment, and you'd also be providing the same storage area and places to park cars.
Yeah, so we looked at several permutations and rotations of this, recognizing that a vehicle needs to come in and be able to maneuver in, back out, and get out. And the more it was rotated counterclockwise to get further away from the wetland, then getting in and out of the garage became difficult with turning motions. Certainly, you know, you could put something, you know, on the back, but as you can see, the setback is here at the house, and so pretty much anything we do is going to be in it. Yes, this little 50 square foot area, we could pull it a little further away, but every time we tried to get further away, the turning motions became a challenge to get in and out of the garage.
John?
Thanks, Jim, for giving us that presentation. It was very informative. A couple things I think we ought to note is that the Foleys have done a remarkable job with this property. It looks beautiful, all of it. No doubt about it. We see these properties that are in tight areas, and for somebody to create the vision that they've created is beautiful. I think when we looked at it first time, we had a discussion whether or not they were just going to drive in and drive back out onto Forest Road, and there were some of us on the board that didn't think that was a very safe option, so we said at a meeting there, we'd like them to have a turnaround area so that they could turn around and then drive headfirst out onto the road. The driveway is pitching pretty good towards the wetlands. The drip edge and the mitigation there on the low side will definitely help. On the front corner, you're right up against that stone wall or that concrete wall on the front left-hand corner next to the house.
Yes.
I mean,
It's going to have to be reworked.
yeah.
To make this happen, but that was the trade-offs in trying to get the turning motions and the wall and the walkways to fit. That's just something that's going to have to be altered.
So with the other backside, there'll still be an area where they can walk around the backside of the garage there on the street side?
Be able to walk around here. There is still space through here so that they can still service their septic tank. Yeah, they can go around this way, but they can also, for the septic tank pumping, the septic tank is here, so they'll be able to pull a line through there. In the worst case, they could open up the garage door and open up a man door out on this side to get over there. But
So they could walk around on the southeast side, though,
yes,
also?
correct.
So just a curiosity, the orientation of the building, a thing in Wolfeboro is we try to create the facade for the dominant feature. You did take that into consideration when you were doing the layout of it?
Yes, because by the time, if we were to rotate it so that you didn't see the doors, let's
Yes.
say, then the garage would be pushed almost in front of the house, and then you couldn't get into it at all. So that was part of the permutations that we went through.
Okay. So just for a question, is it a one-story garage? Or is it a?
Yes.
Yes. So one of the things that we looked at when we were up there was the left-hand side where the turnaround area comes down right next to the concrete header that dumps over the cliff right there.
Yep, right here.
Any chance we could, I see you got the berm of the garden that comes around, that's all going to slow that water down. Is there any mechanism there that we could add to that last corner to help slow that down before it dives over the edge?
We could certainly try to put in an infiltration trench on that side as well. With the retaining wall, we were thinking that may not be necessary as over here, but if that made a difference in approval or not, then we would figure out a way to do it.
Okay, so I got one more here. But this is an important one for me. In this day and age, we use a lot of synthetic plastic woods and so forth. I've seen some job sites where they're right near the manhole drain, and the contractor comes, he cuts a bunch of plastic AZAC, and the plastic just blows in the drain or ends up washing down the area. Could we make a provision if they're going to cut any plastic wood or anything, it would be up in the back area where it wasn't in the driveway, where it would have the tendency to wash down into the wetland area?
If that's a condition of your approval, then that's the way it will have to be done.
I think the owner is aware of it, and I think just that is going to be good enough for me.
Good.
Okay, and Tavis, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nothing too terribly special. Fairly standard conditions. The first reference is just the plan set that you have. That would now include the plan you received this evening. applicant being responsible for payment of all the recording fees, like the standard condition regarding all documentation submitted as part of the approval or action, and then any conditions of the special use permit, should it be granted, would be duly referenced in any building permit that's issued.
Okay, anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay, then,
Removal of that other building is implicit in the plans?
Yes.
okay, it seems that the application is complete, so if somebody would make a motion to accept the application as complete.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion's been made
Second that.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, I'll now open up the public hearing if any member of the public wants to speak to the issue. Okay. Good evening.
Hi, my name's John Percuda. I live at 124 Forest, directly across from John. And yes, it is a beautiful property. And and everything that John has done in the property has been first notch and everything. But I've also noticed over the years that he has been at the property, the problem with the driveway, the constant shuffling cars around and everything like that, and especially during the winter, very dangerous, trying to get in and out and everything. And as far as I'm concerned, this is absolute, and of course we're all getting older and everything, so it makes it more difficult. And I just think it would definitely be an asset to Forest Road and everybody, the town and all. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, any other questions? Or Tavis, do you have some suggested recommendations if we were to
Only
approve this?
the recommended conditions I stated previously, yes.
Yep. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Just the conditions already stated.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right.
So would you like the motion?
Okay, yes, if you could make a motion, that would be very good.
I'd be
Thank
happy
you.
to move to approve case number 2022-06, tax map 215-031, a special use permit for detached garage and paved turnaround area with the 4 conditions as stipulated by the planner.
Okay,
And add a drip edge on that low side. Infiltration.
Make that a condition of approval?
Yeah, well, do we have to, or we just have a,
Didn't hear, sorry.
he wants to know if he has to, if it's on the plan, is that right, Tavis?
It is on the plan, yes.
Right, but if you want to make a condition, that's fine.
well, the drip edge that he's got is on the right-hand side, not on that left lower-hand corner.
Okay,
I mean, I would go with Brad's suggestion there of putting some riprap or something like that on that corner, just to slow things down a little bit.
So a suggestion to add a condition on the southwest side of the driveway for the new area of paving that would include a drip edge?
Kathy?
Yep.
Kathy? My thought on that, as I mentioned up the site there, Jim hadn't heard this part yet, but where that turnaround kind of wraps around there and it comes and drops off into the ditch line by Forest Road, I thought there was maybe just create a little bit of erosion stone right in there, just slow that water down as it comes around off the turnaround, heading down into the ditch line there along Forest Road. My thoughts on, John's suggestion of a drip edge type system along the edge of the new turnaround. The only thing I could see you could have a potential problem with that is if you get the right conditions there, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, by accepting water into a drip edge, it's probably a couple feet deep there, you get the right conditions there, that could end up actually backing up and saturating the gravels underneath the pavement, which would kind of diminish the strength of the base under the pavement, and you could end up getting some earlier failure in the pavement there and stuff. So personally, I would, if we're going to do something there, I would think just because you have a good lawn area there, I'm assuming you're going to bring that lawn right back up to the edge of the pavement again, and then just where it comes in and ties into the existing driveway there, that little 4-foot long section there, just a little bit of a gentle swale there with some erosion stone to keep the water slowed down as it enters the ditch line. I think that would work.
Yeah,
Fine there, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I didn't have any other recommendations other than what he had on the plan on that right-hand side. That.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about down over here on this turnaround.
That's just that one spot there.
Yeah.
How's that?
Okay, do you have that, Tavis?
If that is something that the maker of the motion wants to add I don't think you had a second yet, but
I'm going to withdraw my
okay.
motion to approve. Why don't we figure out this last condition, and then I'll remake that motion?
Okay, well, the applicant has considered that there are no other alternative locations for the garage. The proposed construction is kind of essential here, I think, in the winter to have a garage. And they certainly have taken all the steps that they can think of to minimize the detrimental impact on the wetlands. And we have considered the conservation comments, and I think they've been addressed by the applicant. Okay, so now do you want to make an...
I'd like, if I may, Madam Chairman, I'd like to have that final condition read so that we all know exactly what it is before we
Okay.
vote on it, because I'm not sure I know exactly what it said. Tavis?
applicant shall be required to
Tavis, can you pull your mic down?
Applicant shall be required to install drip edge and/or erosion control to reduce stormwater runoff rate and quantity south and west of the existing driveway in the area of the paved turnaround at the top of slope.
Is that as the
Correct.
board understands
Yeah.
it? All right. I'd
Okay.
be happy to make a motion to approve case number 2022-06, tax map 215-031 at 127 Forest Road in Wolfeboro for a special use permit for detached garage and paved turnaround area with the 5 conditions as stipulated by the planner.
Okay, all right.
Seconded.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Good night.
Nice to see you, Jim.
Thank you. Yeah, come again, Jim.
Oh, good.
Okay. The next issue, TCW Property Development, LLC, Peter Ford, 27 plus South Main Street, tax map 217-91, case 2022-07. This is a site plan review for change of use and addition of a deck, and I do not see any applicant.
Neither do I.
Excuse me?
Neither do I. I leave it to the board. You're not required to have an applicant present to have a hearing. The board can make its own determination. The information has been submitted. If you believe it's complete without a presentation, you can do that. You can or you could open the public hearing believing that it's complete and then continue to allow the applicant to be present. So.
Okay, well, I think we should open the public hearing and continue it until our next meeting and see what their thoughts are. I mean,
Do we know why the applicant did not arrive or send a, we've heard nothing.
I've heard nothing. I received an application with anticipation of having a resolution this evening, and here we are.
Okay, what's the date of the next meeting, Tava, sorry?
The workshop meeting? That would be the 19th. So the 19th, July 19th.
Oh, okay, well, I'd like to make a motion that we open the public hearing and then hold this over until the next planning board meeting, which is the 19th. Somebody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, all right. Okay,
So I have a question about the information on the review. First off, it says 27 plus South Main Street. What does that mean?
right, yeah, I was wondering that too, but,
Technically, answering the question is fine. Technically, you shouldn't discuss the public hearing. It was just
yeah,
continued.
right.
But to answer that question, there are many addresses on Main Street where there are numerous entrances, but at the time of the tax card computerization, it would just say 27 plus. If it was 27, 29, 31. For example, the building next door, the Avery building, goes from 15 to 19. It's listed as 15 to 19. There's nothing consistent, but there's multiple addresses on one parcel.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's why it looks that way.
Know that, Brad?
They didn't do like ABC?
All right, thank you.
They didn't do ABC in the building?
Okay, so we'll, I mean, if you just let them know that we've postponed this and,
I'll inform the applicant.
yeah, okay, and,
weird.
okay, thank you. All right, the next item is this telecommunications tower. Want to give us some background on this, please? Tavis?
The cell tower?
Yes.
All I know about the cell tower is I had an informal discussion about a cell tower with two applicants that have yet to come forward with a proposal, and then I received the letter that I forwarded to you that has been forwarded to all the board members in case at this level the planning board wants to enter into any comments about the site as depicted in that submission. This is not part of the regulations. This is part of the federal side.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I just thought if anybody has any questions about this or the approval process.
Yeah, at this point, the letter has to speak for itself because that is not following our regulations or approval process.
Okay. Well, I was trying to think ahead if people had any thoughts.
If nothing else, it's a due heads up that something's likely coming our way, yes.
Yeah, okay. And it seems like they need to go to ZBA first for this.
Actually, our regulations require the applicant, should they decide to move forward with an application, they're required to request a joint meeting of the planning board and the zoning board who have concurrent hearings throughout the whole process.
Okay.
So,
All right. Any questions, folks? Okay.
Just
go-
that one,
Well, no, yeah, I've got,
planning board and zoning concurrent, like everybody's here in the room together?
correct.
yes,
And then we pretend we're one big board?
right.
No, you do not become one big board. You have a joint hearing. ZBA does ZBA function, planning board does planning board function,
And we take turns?
essentially.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay, Mike, you sent us the latest action on, that the governor had signed
Yeah, just-
on the RSA amendments. You want to go over those? I sent them to people, but,
There's only one that's really
yeah, right.
important for us, well, maybe two that are important, one more so than the other. The House Omnibus Bill, which was 1661, was passed, amended, and has been signed by the governor last month. It's got various provisions, all of which that are important to us. You've seen in the handout that I gave Kathy that she circulated to us. The one that's of lesser importance of the two, in my opinion, for us to talk about tonight, is the density allowances for older housing and for workforce housing. Basically, it requires the same incentive for both. And the effective date on that is July of next year. The more important one, I think, which affects us immediately, is that as of next month, all decisions made by the planning board, whether for or against an application, have to be in writing with the reasons why we've done what we've done, and they have to be backed by facts. Have to make findings of fact. We have not done that up until recently. So the question I have is, for the board, that's the requirement. How is the board going to fulfill that requirement?
Well, we did ask, you want to comment on that, Tavis?
Yeah, it was discussed briefly at the last meeting. My thought is to come to the July 19th meeting with some tutorial materials, if you will, on how to, it's not as difficult as it sounds. Many boards all over the country have been doing this. It's simply a matter of being able to glean from the discussion of the board the salient points. Tonight, for example, your first case, my report to you included the very specific findings that the regulations require the board make in issuing a special use permit. So a way to make findings is, in so determining that the board has verified that the findings as required under 175.5C2, just bear with me for example, have been met, I make a motion to approve the project as submitted subject to the following conditions. It's not necessarily a separate motion or a laborious effort. I'm just going to try and I'm going to try and feed it to you, if you will. I'm not going to tell you whether an application has or has not met certain criteria. I'm going to tell you in the review what the regulation requires the board to determine in order to approve an application. All
Okay,
of your
so-
findings are essentially written in the regulations. So a simple expression that the required findings pursuant to section X have been made is, I believe,
Okay, so
satisfaction of the new
the
requirement.
findings of fact are first, and then the conditions,
Correct.
yeah, right, okay.
If I may play devil's advocate, to say that an application has met 17510C is not a finding of fact. It's
No,
a
you have
statement
to, you
that
have to put some meat behind it.
You have to say why you found that.
Right.
Correct.
On
Yeah.
the ground, X, Y, Z is clear.
Correct.
So it's a little bit more than just saying, yep, you met all the regulations, everything's fine, go back to bed now.
Right.
Second question is, which really was what I was asking, at what stage are we going to do these findings of fact? Are we going to do them while the deliberation is going on and before the vote or after the vote? Or since we have some time, do we want to craft findings of fact at our leisure within the time frame and have the chair sign them as part of the decision?
You mean,
The very last part, yes, I believe a notice of decision could include the findings of fact. As to whether the board elects to do, because there's nothing requiring you to do deliberations on the same night of the public hearing. You could, for example, decide to have all of your public hearings at say, the first meeting of the month and all the deliberations at the second meeting, if you so chose. The statute does not obligate you to make a decision instantaneously. You have time to do that.
And the statute also does not assign the author of the findings of fact, does it? Simply
No.
says the board.
Correct.
So if the board wants to ask the chair at her leisure to write findings of fact as part of a decision based upon deliberations that we've made here, then we will clearly get
Yes.
a better product,
Yes.
and one that's more
I
likely to
would
stand
also
through.
right, so you have the public hearing, pretty much decide whether we're going to approve it or not, and then hold it over for another meeting until the findings.
Or you,
No, you wouldn't have
or
to do
you-
that.
You don't necessarily have to hold it over.
Yeah.
If the submission is made and the presentation is made and that you get the sense that the board is ready to approve or deny based on the discussion that's had over, the findings of fact could be drafted prior to the meeting.
Findings
I
of
would
fact.
submit, at least in the case of a special use permit, particularly one that was done as tonight's was submitted, the board could accept the answers as provided by the applicant as fulfilling the requirements of the conditions and therefore make a finding. So,
Isn't most of this information provided in the minutes of our meeting?
yes, but
You now have to put it in a proper legal form.
you now have to put it in a legal form, yes.
You know, and that sort of makes sense to me. I mean, our deliberations are dealing with the facts, are what the regulations are and the facts, so
Correct.
therefore
If
it should
you
be
look-
part of our meeting, our minutes.
You know, just to draw this out a little bit, if you look at many ZBA cases that get appealed to court, you'll see that the court relies upon not only the minutes, but they may also look into the audio recording and say, oh, look, there, they actually did discuss it, they just didn't make a point of bringing it up as part of their motion.
Except that the audio portion is never accepted as a transcript.
Correct.
It's the minutes that go on. The audio portion is only used for context to establish perhaps a difficult understanding of a section in the minutes.
But how much simpler would it be with written findings to substantiate the motion rather than having to read the full body of minutes? I
Yeah,
think
of
that's where
course,
the state
and
was
the
going.
reason why this was passed was to make it easier on the courts to find reasons why the board has made a decision one way or the other. Again, I just point out that as in the language of the statute, as written, because this is new text, does not say when the written decision has to be made.
Yeah, right.
Does not say who has to write that written decision. So the decision can be made by the board. We can vote to approve, and we have our reasons for voting to approve, which will show up in the minutes. And we have our conditions, which the planner has suggested, which becomes part of the approval. That packet could then be taken, and the next day, the facts extracted out and listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right. Yep,
and there you go. But
yep, that will
so the
be,
board would not have to struggle over what are we finding that's factual today
right, yeah, that's.
while we're doing our deliberations.
Right, yeah, it's, yes, okay. All right, sorry, but I skipped over public comment. Okay?
I
All
have
right, yeah,
something.
just a sec. Okay, I sent, well, in the packet was a letter from Daniel Miles or something. Basically, and you all have a copy of this. I mean,
Nobody got it.
nobody got this? Okay. All right, well,
It's a letter,
yeah, it's a letter about request for a termination of a board member. Well, I just assumed it had come in and it was being sent on to everyone.
No, I think if you look, it's addressed specifically to someone, and then there are some CCs on there. Those are the only people that received that letter.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
well,
I think you received your copy at the same time you picked up your packet, but that was not included in the packet.
Okay, well, I think probably it should be, but I just wanted to say that we're not really in the enforcement business, and if there's a member of this board that is voted in by the citizens, then that's the way it is.
Correct.
And so, but, I mean, I'm sorry about this, but I really thought that it was being passed on.
I can make copies of the letter available if the chair would like the members to have it, but I don't think it should be on TV or in public session.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
can I point something out which is curious? In state law, there is no provision for recall of an elected official. There is,
So whoever
Correct.
there is no
gets
state,
voted in, they're.
Once you're in,
whatever
you're
the
in.
term
It's 4
is.
years.
and you can't be recalled for almost anything, including malfeasance. You could go to jail for something and theoretically still be a member of whatever board it was you were serving on. I'm not making any suggestions. Anyway, I just thought that was curious. There was an attempt 2 sessions ago in the House to get a recall provision through, and it failed really heavily. So clearly, this state does not want to have a recall provision for its elected officials, for whatever reason.
Okay, anything else people want to bring up?
I have one thing.
Okay.
Tavis, can you find out and see if the town manager has finished the survey on the dockside parking lot and give us a report on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
The survey, you mean the survey?
Yeah, 2 years ago, Paul O'Brien was the chairman of the dock committee, and a motion was made through that dock committee, and it was requesting that the town manager survey the boundaries for the dockside parking lot so we could figure out what we owned and what we didn't own and what we could do with our property so we could plan going forward and make sure that everybody was on the same page.
That survey has been done. We have seen it. It was just done earlier this summer, wasn't it, or the spring? Yeah. Yep. Right. There are some license agreements because there's a few pieces of properties that protrude into the town property, so we're going through a process there to get easements or license agreements with those lot owners along that parking lot. So, but yeah, the survey has been completed, so the boundary line is very well identified now.
So if we have an application that comes in front of us that abuts that parking lot, we're confident that we'll be able to determine that everything's been settled?
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Anything else? Okay, minutes of June 21st.
One comment.
Okay,
On page 1, bold type down the bottom, paragraph that starts, Mike Hodder, blah, blah. Third line, 120 feet. My notes are unusually confused. I don't know whether it was 125 or 150 feet, but I know it wasn't 120.
Michael, I remember 150. That was my question. I thought Peter had it pinned down, though.
Yeah, Peter and I were negotiating, and we chopped it
Yeah.
down. Anybody remember a number in particular?
150 sounds good.
I think it was 150.
Whatever.
okay,
'Cause
so
if
Julie,
if it's
Doug,
120.
did you, do you?
I think 150 is accurate.
Oh, okay,
150 will make.
Yeah, because the other one was too small. When you took the 20 out of it, and you got 100.
All right, then
Yeah.
If we want to find out, we can go back and look at the recording.
I move that we change the number 120 to 150.
okay, I'll second that.
That's the only other change I had.
Okay, all right, okay, so everybody's all set with the minutes, you want to just make the...
I'd be happy to
yeah.
move to approve the minutes of Tuesday, June 21, 2022, as amended.
Okay, and I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great.
Do public comment?
Yeah, Linda said she didn't have
Oh,
any.
okay, I didn't see that.
No, I did skip over it, and then I remembered and went back to it. So, okay, so,
Kathy,
Early.
can I make a motion to end the meeting?
yes, would you please?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, because we didn't, the second.